Hello, everyone. We are live. Welcome back to the Prospero.ai stock market live stream. How was everyone's weekend? Did you guys watch the Super Bowl? Pretty boring game, if I do say so myself. Was in a tough situation as a Giants fan watching Chiefs and Eagles play. Didn't know who to root for exactly, but glad to see the Chiefs finally be taken down a bit. No winner. Um, I didn't want anybody to win, to be honest, but uh, pretty boring game. Decent commercials. Anybody like any of the commercials extra? We're going to talk about it on the stream later. So if you want us to bring up a commercial, make sure to mention it in the comments, and I'll try to bring it up when we do. But we got some great stock market topics today to get into. Obviously, the market is up. The QQQ is up over 1.3% as of right now, and the IWM, or the Russell, is the lagger of the day, up only 0.2%, but we are green across the board. So it's a green day as of right now. Let's take a quick look at the QQQ and SPY net option sentiment in Prospero, so we can check back in later at the end of the stream and see how they are doing. So the QQQ right now, it looks like the QQQ has gone down to 0. Looking in the Prospero app, that's not a good sign. And the SPY is at 17. So both of the SPY and QQQ net option sentiments remaining low. I'll be sure to ask George about that when he gets into the stream today. But what we're also going to talk about is the steel and aluminum stocks surging on news that there will be 25% tariffs put into place today for steel and aluminum coming into the country. So we'll get into that and some of the other industrial stocks that could be helped by this, and talk about that in detail. Then we have GameStop and MicroStrategy possibly collaborating. Ryan Cohen and Michael Saylor posted a photo over the weekend that has investors in those two companies very happy and those stocks going higher. There's speculation that GameStop could take on a crypto strategic reserve like MicroStrategy, which is actually rebranded as just Strategy now. So we'll see if those companies are going to work together. And then people are tying together the halftime show of Kendrick Lamar with Roaring Kitty. If you want to know how, stick around. I'll let you know. Next, we're going to talk about how there is going to be no more pennies. So Trump made a tweet, which is actually, I think it's a funny tweet, or it might have been a truth even, but I'll read it out when we get to this topic. But in just the pennies cost 3 cents to make, and they're obviously only worth a penny. So looks like they're going to be putting a stop as the government continues to get more efficient under Doge. Like I said earlier, we're going to get into the Super Bowl ads. Two in specific that I'm going to bring up today are Nike, which made a Super Bowl appearance for the first time in over 2 decades, almost 3. And obviously that stock has struggled for a while now. And then OpenAI had an ad that many are saying was one of the better ads of the night. It took a single cell and then brought you through the journey of intelligence or life. So it was pretty cool and right on board with what they're doing at their company. And the Super Bowl ads just keep going up and up and up. The price tag was pretty insane. We'll get into that and if it's worth it for a company to have a Super Bowl ad with how expensive that they are. Then let me look at Meta right now. If you're a Meta shareholder, you have to be extremely happy. You haven't seen a red day for your stock in 15 days, and if today ends green, it'll be 16. So the stock has just been a beast, and it is green right now, up at 716.59, up 0.29% on the day, going for 16. What does it mean for a stock to be up 16 straight days? I think that's what I want to ask George. Is there anything overwhelmingly bullish about that besides the fact that it's just been green for 3 straight weeks? Because the moves are tiny. So what's going on there? We have to dive into that. And obviously, Zuckerberg has spun the company in recent months with his rebranding of himself. Then we have 2 stocks that we're going to get into a valuation talk on and even preview earnings for Reddit, which is going to be out later this week. The stock is up over 500% since IPOing earlier this year. Last year. But they now have about a $38 billion market cap. And why is the question. So is data king? And how are their earnings going to be, do we think? And the next stock is Walmart, which is trading at a high valuation and has made an insane move of itself. It's up 80% in the past year and now has a 40 PE. Is it a justifiable PE for a business like that? It's pretty slow growth, pretty low margin. What can we forecast Walmart stock from here? It is about 20% away from joining the exclusive $1 trillion club. So if the valuation isn't a concern to George, I'm wondering, can it get there this year? I mean, it made 80% move in the past 12 months. What is 20 in the next 12? And then last but not least, before we get into the model portfolio at the end of the stream today, I'll bring up this topic that we've been rolling over for a few streams now about how for the first time, and this is from Bloomberg, a majority of all trading in US stocks is now consistently occurring outside of the country's exchanges. So I'll ask, who is doing that trading? Why is it happening? To George, and what is the meaning, or how does it affect these stocks in the market? Let me take a live look at how many people are tuning in on YouTube today, because I want to have one of our most liked streams today. So let's see how many people are tuning in. So right now I'm seeing only 7. Let's see if that's live. Oh no, we have 18 people in here and only 5 likes. So if you guys could be so kind as to like the video on YouTube, let's try to hit double digits before George gets in here, and maybe even 20 by the end of the stream today. Or if you're watching this in the future, you could smash that like button too. We'll try to get up to 20 likes on this live stream. I'll even help you guys out. I'm going to like it from the Prospero account. So there you go. There's one more. Let's see. Here we go. Oh, I can't view it on Prospero for some reason. That's odd. Are we still live? Yeah, I see it. Okay, I see it on my other one. All right, so we got up to 11, so thank you all for liking it. Looks like we just have a few minutes before George is going to join us. What do you guys think? Should Monday after the Super Bowl be a holiday? Should they start the Super Bowl earlier? A lot of the people where I was at who have work and had to be up early today were complaining about that all night. They were saying they should have the Super Bowl on a Saturday. They should start it earlier. Today should be a holiday. Where do you guys fall on that? Or do you guys not care about the Super Bowl? Just want the stock market topics? Let me know in the chat. Let me bring up the market too and try to highlight any extra crazy moves that we're seeing as the market opened today. Hello, George. Welcome to the stream.
Hello. I was doing more camera maintenance. Sorry, I'm a little late. I actually had to remove.
So I just looked at QQQ and SPY net option sentiment in Prospero, and they're both a little low. I think I want to start there when you're ready to go. But just looking through some of the stock moves that we have today so far, we had Tesla going down, but actually it was down over 2% to begin, almost 3% to begin the day, but now back almost to the break-even line. We have most of big tech up. I think Tesla might be the only one that's red right now. We're going to talk about Meta stock later, obviously, trying to go for their 16th straight green day, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, so the markets are still green across the board. Let me look at how the semis are doing right now. Looks like most of the semi stocks are up. AMD is up over 2.5% right now. NVIDIA up over 3%. So a good day for the semis so far. So most stuff is green, but we have net option sentiment trending lower, it would appear. I'm wondering how that's making you think about this market week as we begin.
Yeah, I mean, I took some interesting higher risk longs, GME in the morning, and then I got back into Palantir just because I don't want to, net option sentiment is a little low. I got back in at 66, but it's been running so much. I don't want to I don't want to miss the big. I want to be cautious, and I might be quick with the exit again, but yeah, I mean, I think it could keep running and running big. So we might be in and out of that and a little sensitive, but yeah, a lot of our picks continue to look good this year.
So you mentioned about the longs you entered. I think you said one of them was GameStop. I have some talking points on them, but before I bring them up, what made you want to get into that stock this morning?
Oh, I mean, it looked surprisingly good in some key signals, right? It had upside of 80, which is very high long term for it, and then it had net options of 87 and net social of 93. So yeah, it looked really good all around.
So I saw how it had bullish signals, and it was actually the stock. Every morning, if you guys follow us on Twitter, there's one stock that I highlight in our Twitter account or X account. So when I was doing that, I was seeing that I think some of the reason why there's some bullishness, at least on social media end, is that Ryan Cohen and Michael Saylor posted a photo on social media, and some people are wondering if GameStop is going to take on the MicroStrategy, which actually changed their name now to just Strategy. They're wondering if GameStop is going to take on the crypto Bitcoin reserve type move that MicroStrategy is doing. Do you think that would be bullish if they did that?
No longer micro. Yeah, I mean, that would be an interesting move in this day and age, to keep raising equity funds and investing it in cryptocurrency. I mean, if you think about it, GameStop, one of the reasons why we only play it for momentum is that it has, I think a 14 profitability and a 30 growth. So it doesn't really have a business. But at the same time, we keep saying it. We're in a momentum market. And if you're not willing to capitalize on momentum, you're leaving a lot on the table. And, obviously we've been doing that this year.
Yeah, I don't know why they would just change their name to Strategy. They should have gone either all the way in the reverse, MacroStrategy, or even I was thinking, I mean, they're obviously fully committed to Bitcoin. Why not go like Satoshi Strategy, something? Just Strategy is a little bland, no?
Well, I think they got too big to be MicroStrategy, That's why they're not micro anymore. So it's not accurate. I think it's like, and they're not quite macro either because, they're pretty focused. So, strategy isn't bad.
So the other thing that I saw going around is that yesterday during the Super Bowl halftime show, to end it off, there was game over lit up in the stands. And people think that that is connected with Roaring Kitty's shirt that said game over when this all started. So what do you make of that?
I mean, I make of it as there's a lot of people that want to draw a lot of lines that may or may not exist and draw them pretty definitively. So that's always my big problem with a lot of this stuff. It's not that it's not possible, right? I think there's a lot of things possible. But when you start investing, trading, whatever on the possible instead of the probable, then you're not really using sound techniques. And I think that that's probably the easiest way to talk about what I don't like about a lot of the meme retail trades. Like a lot of them are trading on the possible, not on the probable. And even if you're willing, we could dispute how possible, how sure, everybody's going to have different opinions on that. But I don't really think, unless you're like way in the conspiracy theory land, that like a lot of these things could be considered even remotely objectively as probable. And I think that that's kind of the difference as I see them. And to tie it back to the actual thing, I think it's pretty probable that GME, I thought it was going to go up today. It was up only 2.87% when I got it. And I think it's closer to 7% right now. So I thought it was quite probable that it would go up today. But I don't really think, whether it be Bitcoin or whatever, I don't think it's probable at all that they figured out what their long-term business is. It's possible, right, that they do this Bitcoin thing, right? But even then, like, why would you prefer, why would you really want to be in GameStop versus MicroStrategy? Maybe a better, valuation, but, it's a valuation of nothing, right? If ultimately, like, they're raising money to buy more Bitcoin, how, like, and that's the main, like, growth area of their business or upside of their business, why wouldn't you want to own a company that has just been, like, doing that for longer and has a lot more Bitcoin?
Mm-hmm. But obviously, like, our signals are bullish on it enough where you would get in, and it doesn't seem to me like a photo being posted on social media or a game over in the stands could trigger that. So, do you think there's something else that could come to light in the near term future? The reason why people would be betting on it that our signals would pick up, other than what we're seeing right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, like, a lot of institutions have similar playbooks with the memes, right? They're trading the waves. And I think what ends up happening is, there gets to be enough of a narrative online, and there's enough people involved, and especially GameStop, that, yeah, it can help a stock find a floor, right? And I think that that's, at this point, a lot of what's going on, and a lot of, like, it might have found its floor. There's enough energy that, like, it at this price, we could take it for another ride, right? And institutions see the same thing. I think as they see more and more chatter, more and more, retail loading up on options contracts, then they, just do the same. They take it for a little ride, rinse, repeat.
Okay, so our next two stories are surrounding the government. Two moves to talk about on this stream today. So the first of which is that it was announced that steel and aluminum there will be a tariff placed on imports of them into the country of 25%, and this sent a lot of USA industrial and steel and aluminum stocks up this morning. When these stocks make a big move like that are pretty boring companies, like, is it the right time to get in? How do you feel about the lasting nature of these tariffs? We've obviously seen it go back and forth, like if they're going to stick or not. So how do you feel about this news we got?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen tariffs one day and not tariffs another. Like, we know they're negotiating tactics. So anything that we've seen to be a negotiation tactic, right? And I think there's even people in the extended circle of Trump that is implying that these will be ongoing negotiation tactics, right? So I think that makes it, like, we kind of get back to something that we talk about all the time, which is, like, what's your edge in these, like, tariff timing things? And I will save everybody a lot of trouble. You don't have an edge, because there's a lot of people that have the information, nothing from stopping them trading it inside, right? And you only really find out what they're doing at the earliest 6 weeks from when they do it, and they might have been in and out of, whatever, by the time you actually see that 6 weeks later. So yes, I think that all of that adds up to, that's not the right kind of, trades, investments, whatever, to be in. And, one of the reasons we're staying away from, chips, and we say that is because, like, yeah, we could be another day away at any point from, it going down a lot. And yeah, we don't really have much interest in taking that kind of risk profile now when we see other things that we like.
So we have close to 1,000 viewers that have been in the stream. Thank you all for tuning in. I think this story might be a good time if we have some new people. Maybe if you could shed light on the difference in how to read signals. Like, I know big tech, like specifically like Tesla or other ones, like when they have 100 net option sentiment, that's bullish, and maybe 80 would be a bearish level for them. And maybe these industrial stocks, maybe those levels are very different since there's a lot less activity, they're a lot more boring companies, less people placing bets. So if you want to talk about how that works in Prospero and the signals, could probably help some people today.
Yeah, I mean, you can always look at a baseline of where it is, where it's going, right? I'll typically, like, 20 points above, as long as it's above 50 and 20 points above where it is, you could conceivably, build an idea around that. It's not really, like, that's a little low for me, but I'm saying that's kind of the floor of what I would consider even an idea. But I mean, yeah, like, the tough thing about these kinds of things is, net option sentiment isn't necessarily going to pick up if a very inner circle of people know something about, a tariff or, whatever. Like typically, like it's possible. It's possible a trade news is leaked. A lot of stuff happens, but a lot of the times these things can really take people, by surprise. I think we've seen like a lot of these, tariff situations kind of shock the market. I don't think we've seen a lot of like trading ahead of them. So yeah, like net option sentiment is only useful if the information's been dispersed, kind of wide enough. And I don't necessarily think that we've seen that evidence.
So the other story I want to get into is it looks like people around the world are going to have to be saying RIP to the penny. Trump truthed or tweeted yesterday, and it was even thrown around before that by Doge, but his tweet was pretty good. It was, "Let's rip the waste out of the great nation's budget, even if it's at a penny at a time." So what they were talking about was that it costs over 3 cents to make a penny, and obviously a penny is only worth 1 cent. So when's the last time you spent a penny in person, George? How impactful are pennies in your life?
Oh, I hate change. Like anytime someone like I'll barely carry around cash, but anytime someone gives me change, it goes instantly into like a tip jar, like whatever. Like I don't want it. Change is gross too. Not that like bills are like bills or everything's gross. You don't want to be like licking any currency. But at the same time, like you hold a coin and like your hand can smell after it. Like that's how gross. I don't think that's ever happened to me with a bill before. But like honestly, like what costs 5 cents even? I know nothing costs a penny. What costs like why don't we just like get rid of dimes or like, I'm like trying to think of like, because you don't want something to just round up if it would be cheaper, right? But I don't think anything even costs a quarter, right? And maybe some things will get rounded down if people think it's not worth 50 cents. Like I don't think we need any of those, Maybe you still need quarters because I do think some things might still cost quarters, and you don't want to like, you don't want to really take away products that someone can buy at a more affordable price. But yeah, I feel like probably all the way up to quarters we're fine. Like I don't think we need to be dealing with change and minting change and like all that. I agree with that.
So I see your question, Mario, and we'll talk about Baba right after this, but I just want to pull on this string a little bit more. So do you think in the future there could ever be a world where there's no physical cash and it's all digital? And I think the truth of the matter of why people would fight that is that, with cash, there's less of a trail, so it's easier to like, with taxes and everything like that. I feel like that's the real truth. People would be concerned that everything is traceable if it's digital. So do you think that won't happen because of that reason? Or do you think we're headed for that road down the line?
Hard to say, right? Because I think some of it is even just like, I still think there's like vestiges of things like the mob, right? That still has some power. They weren't as powerful as they once were, right? And they like cash businesses, right? I'm not sure that that's the only reason, but there's also things like, like some people, lower income people, can't get bank accounts, and it's not really fair to like force them to do that. I mean, I think there's a lot of tech and kind of usability things that have to be solved before we can do that. But yeah, I mean, I think eventually we could get there tech wise, but I don't know. There might just be some people that just don't want to do it, that want to like be like pay in cash. That I don't think the government will ever enforce it. I think it might just get naturally phased out.
Yeah, I wonder what the percentage is right now of digitally, like payments done digitally versus in physical right now. It's probably very low. But Mario is asking about Baba, and with sentiment up today and earnings coming up, what are your thoughts on it?
It's certainly tempting. I looked at it in our signals, but I don't really like playing earnings, and playing earnings when it's a Chinese company is even tougher. But I just looked in the app. It looks good. I mean, I wouldn't like I'm not going to do it right now just because like a lot of my other stuff is going well, and like playing something like Alibaba that, I don't really necessarily feel I have any strong, unique information on, even though it does look good in the signals, I think is tough. But I mean, I would say it's more likely than not that it goes up. China just announced, I think, some kind of stimulus. So I think that would, really help, even if their earnings are underwhelming, the fact that there's a stimulus. But maybe they're offering the stimulus because they know that, some of these reports are going to be not so great. But, I think it might be worth playing if you feel confident. I don't get a confident feeling when I think about Alibaba, even though traditionally when it looks this good in the signals, it does mean good things. So I'm kind of like talking all over the place on it. I mean, 97, 97 for net option sentiment for it is good.
So the China stocks are I feel like so tough because when they made that first move a few months ago, I feel like you had a lot of people coming out in support of them. Maybe they were just like talking their book. Like I think David Tepper said buy everything. And then they kind of went back down. They just kept fading, and now they made a recent resurgence pop. So, how do you?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it sounds like it's just tough to read overall the way you just talked about them.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, like it went on Friday 10-11, it went all the way up to 117, and it's at 109 now. Like there was a bit of a peak, and then, I think it's tough, right? With all of like the tensions, like over tariffs and things like that. It's just like, it's the same kind of thing. It's a tough, like there is money to be made. And I think there certainly could be people in the know that say like, hey, it's safe, or China is like thinking about tariffs and they're going to make sure to, provide the kind of stimulus that's needed to help Alibaba. Like, who knows? But it's just what it is in the end of the day is, even if the signals look good, there's just too much information outside of there's too much information, potentially outside of what we can see, and that we might not know with, both our interaction with China as well as just like how China works on its own, which can obfuscate some details. So yeah, for those reasons, I don't feel confident on it, even though the signals are confident. But, that could be my own bias that's not wanting to do that.
Interesting comment from Mario. He's saying Baba has a new AI tool. It seems like the AI battle between China and USA is really starting to heat up with that DeepSeek. Obviously kicked it off. I saw someone post on social media comparing a lot of the internet boom companies in the late 90s with all of these AI large language models that are coming out. I'm wondering, how do you feel about that? Do you think like a lot of these AI companies, and even maybe some that are dominant right now, could fall off the board in a few years, since it seems like there's more and more coming to the market?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think of it as the internet boom. We've talked about this a lot of the time, but I don't think of it as the internet boom. Just because like a lot of these companies, Alibaba, Microsoft, Amazon, like they've got a lot, it's not just that, Palantir, look at the way people are reacting to it as an AI company and the excitement around it. Big Bear AI, we could go on, like, and those might be a little ahead of the valuations, but like we've talked about, like there is some story to this that, AI associated products, there's a lot of demand, there's a lot of change coming in the world, right? You could say the same thing about, internet companies, and honestly, if you're talking about monetization, like these things aren't necessarily well monetized yet. And a lot of the times, especially with like Microsoft, you see them losing money on even like a $200 a month subscription, right? So I see it. I think the problem is that you're not just talking about like a pets.com on its own, right? You're talking about Microsoft, right? And while you might be overvaluing parts of the open AI technology specifically, like Microsoft has that technology because they want to embed you in things like Copilot, right? They want to sell you licensing fees, and they want to maybe be able to increase those licensing fees with the suite of products, as well as become more efficient at profiting off them, and maybe just getting you in at higher prices, right? If you think about like Copilot, maybe it just becomes something that a corporation is willing to pay like a $500 per person, license to make the coders that they have more efficient. Who knows? That's just like one example, but I think that that's the big difference, right? If you're talking about like Alibaba or Microsoft or Amazon or anything like that, it's hard to just isolate the AI part of it and say that's overvalued, because part of what's going on with that AI tech is it's just a way for these companies to reach a new level of scale that I think they're going to get to, right? Because at the end of the day, right, Amazon can use AI to fly their drones, to, use customer service more effectively so they don't have to hire people, perhaps, deliver, a better healthcare system where it's like there's embedded doctors that also use AI that I think, they're probably getting into it. That is all to say, right? Maybe the AI part is, overvalued, but when it comes to like a huge company like that, but it's actually what the AI is going to enable for the scale of their products, as well as the reduction in costs, that's the bigger thing to look at. And that's the very difficult part to value.
And so Meta, one of the companies that I feel like is capitalizing on AI, is going for 16 straight green days today. And I just want to dive into that and like think about what we can read into that. In my mind, when a company is up for 16 straight days, does it tell you that like the shareholders and the investors in that company are maybe more long-term thinkers? Because I would think if they were short-term and swing traders, like after 9 days, 10 days green, like somebody's going to take profits. It's going to have one red day. But just to see it go green, 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 green for almost, or looking like 16 days now, what does that tell you about the stock?
Well, there's that. And then, so yes, it's nice to have that stable base, right? Where people are not selling, right? But you have to think about even our ride with Meta, right? We've loved Meta for like, 2-3 years now. I can't even remember if it's 2 or 3. It's been so long, right? And we've liked it. Our signals liked it since it was at 170, right? And I say that because it's just like sometimes the momentum on these things not only builds and like, attracts more, robots as it builds these kind of streaks, as it passes, its previous EMAs, there's a swing up. But then there's also like the confidence that you're talking about that puts it in the market, where it's just like, wow, if these Meta shareholders are so sure about it, maybe more and more, because one of the things we like about it, obviously, high upside, good profitability and growth, all that stuff, everyone can see that, right? And they just say, okay, maybe people, maybe if the Meta shareholders, existing shareholders, continue to like it at these prices, it really means it has a lot more room to run up in their eyes. But yeah, I mean, it's I think what we're seeing is kind of it's a huge swing, but a bit of the opposite of how Zuckerberg perceived. And it's really interesting because we saw in terms of some of the ways Zuckerberg handled the metaverse, how much a stock could be devalued by lack of faith in the CEO, right? It was trading at, crazy low multiples of their profitability after people kind of lost faith in Zuckerberg in the metaverse. Now, it's kind of the other side. I think people have a lot of confidence in Zuckerberg. Like, not only has he kind of changed around that perception, made some good decisions in like open source AI, really done well growing the fundamentals, started to pay dividends, all that stuff, right? Also, he's turned a situation where he was kind of at odds with the Trump administration. He's turned that into something of an advantage, where now, he's clearly, working with the administration and has gotten close. So I think that all of that kind of takes a perception, and now you're starting to see, how high of a multiple, Meta can trade with with the like business that it has. And I think the other thing, just like kind of really working for Meta, is that if you look at the competition, right, in a lot of these things, like if you look at the competition for Nvidia now, like, Tesla has some issues with sales, and actually that's a topic for another day. But the short version of it is that I think what we were looking at Tesla, we were looking at it like maybe him being able to make inside deals, Elon Musk to be able to make inside deals. But now I'm looking at the situation, and he seems so involved with Doge. Now I'm actually wondering, now that he has this like escalation in power responsibility, if he doesn't care about Tesla that much more, as opposed to like using his position to help Tesla. That's just the thought that I had. But anyway, Amazon, Microsoft, they have these big AWS. Google had these big cloud businesses. Maybe they're a little threatened. You look at Meta, right? And they have this massive business, right? They've managed to, stave off TikTok enough, right? Where they have stories that's growing, their ad revenue is growing. So even though TikTok came along, they've managed to survive, and they have their system pretty well. And that's not even to say, maybe there is more problems for TikTok in the US, and, they grow their base even more. Meta is looking like a company in all this that, even if, DeepSeek, for example, uses a llama model, right? So you start to look at Meta, and you start to look at them and say, hey, they might be as well insulated from, a disruptive model like DeepSeek, like as anyone, because they could certainly use that. They don't have to use any particular cloud environment or whatever. But I think especially that piece of news, I'd say it's the least disruptive to them as any of the Mag 7 companies. So I think that's also kind of what you're seeing. It looks like a safer place, a safer mega cap to put your money in than, a lot of the other ones with the DeepSeek news.
So I want to spin to the Super Bowl, and specifically the commercials. So we have the price totals. For a 30-second spot, it was $8 million. For a 1-minute spot, it was $14 million this year. I remember actually talking about this last Super Bowl, and we were talking about how it was weird that Temu had like 3 commercials, and now we were just talking about them recently, how they passed Amazon in monthly active users. I want to bring up those price tags and ask you, like, is it worth it for a company to pay that high price for a Super Bowl commercial? I guess it was for Temu, but is it the right choice for all companies?
I mean, I think it's hard, right? I think what I always think of with like a Super Bowl ad is like, it's really, really hard to know what the ROI is on that versus like, many more smaller campaigns or many more like pay per click or whatever, right? Because it's hard to directly, sure, you can look at traffic like immediately, the day immediately following a Super Bowl, and saying like, oh, what's the difference between that and all of our normal channels? But at the end of the day, it's very hard to look at all of that. So I think I wouldn't do it. It's kind of like, I feel like it's kind of like a prestige thing, seeing your brand at the Super Bowl versus something that you can directly tie to. And it's probably fun. And it's probably not the worst marketing dollars you can ever spend, but I doubt it's the best either.
I agree with your prestige thing, especially for some companies, like we're going to talk about OpenAI's commercial, but then maybe there's another type of company like Nike, who had their first Super Bowl commercial in 26 years. Not prestige, maybe a Hail Mary. because their stock has struggled for the last year. So, do you think that's also another case of what Nike was doing?
Yeah, and I mean that's a good point. The stock angle, maybe some of it, isn't just product. They want to remind people that, like, oh, maybe Nike's still here. Maybe we should check them out because their stock hasn't been doing that well. So yeah, um, I think that it really depends on the brand, but yeah, like if you're talking about just brand building and brand perception, that's where some people might say that there's an ROI, but that's also a lot harder to put your finger on, as well, like how much it's helped your brand.
Bob commented, "You wanted to be advertising early in the game before some people turned it off due to the score." Yeah, the game was pretty boring, Bob. The other commercial I wanted to bring up was OpenAI. I saw some people talking about how they had one of the better commercials. Their commercial went from like a single dot on the screen representing like single cell life, and then it transformed all the way through like the journey of intelligence, which matches their company's like mission, I feel like, pretty well, and they kind of nailed it. Any commercials stand out in your mind, George, or were you so bored by the game you weren't paying attention?
I was many sporting events. I will just I'll have like there's a second TV that I use as like a whiteboard. So I thought about going to a Super Bowl party, but I decided I didn't want to, and so I just like watched it on mute on the second screen. So I wasn't really like, and the game wasn't really interesting, so I didn't watch that closely. And I was actually I had done a rewatch of The Sopranos, so that was actually pretty compelling. I finished it last night, and I just gotta say, on the rewatch, it's just like they really didn't do a good job with that Tony Soprano like killing, and like apparently like they like it's just been alluded to that he was killed and like all that stuff. Like yeah, it was even dumber, I feel like, watching it the second time, because I kind of remembered that what was going to happen and everything. And I think at the end, like the first time I watched it, it was just kind of like shocking that it ended like that. But now that I kind of remembered it, so yeah, that had really got me in. And I mean, I guess I don't know how well you know the show, but I think there was a guy that kind of like went to the bathroom right before it like cut out. I think that guy was the guy that was supposedly going to kill him, but yeah, like maybe he could have like you could have shown him like getting a gun out and like I don't know. It was dumb.
So I have a tidbit of information. So James Gandolfini grew up in Park Ridge, New Jersey, which is right near where I live. And him and my uncle were friends growing up, and they were actually roommates at Rutgers in college together. So that's a cool background of that show. My Uncle Tony, shout out Uncle Tony, with James.
What does Uncle Tony say? What does he say about the ending?
Honestly, I never got his opinion on the show, but the story that he always tells about James Gandolfini, which I think is funny, people enjoy, is that like all of their friend group were like, dude, you got to stop acting like you're not doing anything. Like you're getting older. This is going to fail for you. And he was in this thing called Puff the Magic Dragon right before The Sopranos. And they were like, oh my God, what's happening to this guy? And then he finally landed that role. And obviously the rest was history, but it's kind of funny.
That's hilarious.
All right. We got to The Sopranos on stream. There you go. That wasn't on your bingo card for all of our viewers. But hopefully you like their comment what your favorite commercial was if you watched the Super Bowl yesterday. But I will spin it now to a stock that has earnings later this week. The stock is Reddit. It's gone up over 500% since IPOing last year. And I think this is one of the more fringe AI plays that the market is viewing. But they obviously have a treasure trove of data. So it leads me to believe that data is king, at least in the market size. Is that what we're seeing happen with this Reddit stock surge?
Yeah. I mean, I think, they announced they were selling data, and ever since then it's done, really well. I mean, data sales are, kind of the lifeblood of some of these, social media companies. Like, it's no different than what Meta does, like, except they're selling like your profile instead of, anything else, or your eyeballs. So like personally, like, yeah, I mean, it's a matter of preference. It's nicer with something like Reddit, where it's like they're actually just like selling the data in some ways, but in other ways it's kind of like more personal. But like my beliefs are like, it's one thing with like email, but where maybe you have some expectation of it being private, but I don't really myself. But yeah, if you're writing on like a public board, like, hopefully they don't like give your real name and they keep it as a screen name. But yeah, like that data is, it's just going to become more and more valuable, right? Because, the models that are powered by, the better data you have, the better the models perform, right? Especially if everybody has access to the same models, the differentiator is the data that you have. And, it's kind of a game of the more data, the better. So yeah, I mean, it's something where like, I'm not sure you can buy Meta's data. Maybe there's a price, but like Google's data, I don't think you can buy. Right. So however you can kind of build your understanding of people with a data set, like I'm sure that's, a popular thing.
So we talked about this before, but how like maybe people will get paid for their data one day, but I think it's a good time to talk about it again. And maybe this is the future where right now people who post on social media, they get paid from the ad dollars and they get a share of that or whatever. But maybe one day down the road, people will get paid a data share of whatever the company's selling data. And maybe that's the solution for UBI as AI takes over all the jobs. So you think that is a possible future where everything people post online and the data revenue that brings for those companies, they'll get a split of it, similarly to how ad dollars are split now?
I mean, yeah, I think that's one path. I think that's the fair thing to do, but we don't necessarily I don't necessarily assume that the fair thing is going to happen. But I think directionally that's where we're going. Like I think especially in like a lot of these like GDPR places, what's happening in Europe. I mean, basically there's first got to be a a way of securing your data, right? And I think that's what a lot of them is, like permission. And then like once people feel their data is secured, they can start selling it. And I think it makes sense, right? And I think that like if I do see a threat to social media, I think that's any existing social media. I think that that's the biggest threat, right? If you could basically use like a Reddit where you owned your data versus the same Reddit, right? Pretty much all that would have to happen is it has to reach a critical mass, right? And it's hard, like that might be hard to get to, right? But I'm only doing the thought exercise of, yeah, if someone manages to build up, a larger user base or whatever, it kind of becomes a no-brainer to jump over if, one of the company's policies is that you get, better. But, you can never underestimate people, right? We still have a bunch of people using Robinhood, and a lot of those same type of people like to complain that things are unfair as they prop up the unfair system with their dollars. So you never know with people.
Mm-hmm. We have Bob asking about AppLovin, and Coinbase. They have earnings in a few days. What are your thoughts on them right now?
I'll probably make the call at the time. See where option sentiment is, see where the market is. Like, if I'll say it this way. If their option sentiment remains strong and the market isn't concerning, right? If QQQ and option sentiment stays this low, I'll probably be out of both of them before earnings. Not a time to play earnings when QQQ net option sentiment is that low, right? But if it recovers and their net option sentiment looks good, I might hold both because they're in different businesses. Just to adjust the risk. I probably won't hold just one unless I see net option sentiment move, but I'm going to have my eye on both of them.
And another stock I wanted to highlight today on the stream is Walmart, a stock that has popped up over 80% in the past year, which was pretty shocking for me to see. A company that is like has been around for so long, the business is like slow growing and the margins are low, but it's now trading at about a 40 PE. Do you think it's justifiable with obviously the stronghold they have? It's kind of like them, Costco, and Amazon. Or are you shaking your head already?
No, I don't like, and it's weird because it would be one thing to me if they had some big growth story, right? Like to me, they figured out a way to like hold off Amazon a little by moving a lot more online, everything like that. But I don't see something where I'm just like, oh, like that's going to be a big growth center for them. And like, especially when they're kind of now behind Amazon in a lot of ways, I don't know what this is about. I think it's like, I think it's kind of just like faux value and like retail value investors, because I saw Net Social is still at 70, right? Where they get it in their head, there's like Walmart's a value, and like they're not even looking at, they're like, oh, it's going to grow, it got beat up too much, when they're not even looking at traditional value metrics. I feel like that's what we're looking at here.
So with the move it's made, it's about 20% away right now from reaching the exclusive $1 trillion club. Do you think it can get there? Obviously, one day, eventually it will, but I'm talking about like the next, like maybe this year or next year.
I'd have to see. Like, net option sentiment looked a little low, but upside looked good. Like, I think it could happen, but I mean, I think it also could be due for a correction, especially if there's like any ongoing inflation concerns.
Interesting to bring up inflation impacting their business. I also saw I don't know if this is a fringe reason why Walmart is trading where it is. I don't even know if I want to. I will bring it up just because I saw it and I think there might be some truth to it. But they were linking the immigration that has happened in America and maybe that benefiting Walmart's business, and that reason why the stock has gone up because of all the increased people that could shop there. I don't know how fringe that is or if there's any truth to that, but it is something that I saw.
No, that doesn't make any sense. Like, if people are getting deported, those are the people that needed to shop at Walmart, right?
Well, no, they were talking about it before this started happening, like the past year of why it got here in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think there's certain people that want to make everything about immigration, but I just think that like, I'm not sure there's enough evidence that of like the actual number, right? Because how many people have been deported so far, right? There was a big game, like how many, let's just Google. How many people have been deported in the Trump second term? Let's see. Yeah, what day is this article? Right? February 10th. Okay, so it's from basically today. So far, there has been like the biggest country is Mexico at 4,100, Colombia at 3,600, Guatemala at 265. Right? Those aren't really big numbers yet, right? I mean, when we're talking about like hundreds of thousands of people or more being deported, right? Then I'll be like, okay, maybe there was a lot of people shopping, right? And like, hey, I do believe, like, I think the middle ground on this is I do believe that there were immigrants committing crimes, right? It certainly is true in New York. Like, my girlfriend is a reporter for the Post, and it's definitely real, right? There were immigrants committing crimes, right? And it was difficult to prosecute them. But like, I think the other side is like, we just don't, there were some big numbers for migrants being thrown around. And right, when I've only seen that like, maybe 5,000 roughly have been deported, I'm just like, okay, I'm going to have to see like a lot more proof that this was happening before I'm just like, before I'm forecasting stocks around it or giving that a reason.
Yes.
Right.
And we have,
because even like 100,000 lost shoppers, right? I'm not sure how much that's going to move the needle, like low income shoppers. I'm not sure how much that's going to move the needle on Walmart.
Walmart
We're not really even talking about that number yet.
Walmart has to have like tens of millions of total shoppers, right? So like, it wouldn't even be 1%, probably.
Exactly. Let's see. I mean, I think it's more than that.
Yeah, I was tempted to even say like 100 million because I mean. while George is finding this, if you guys have enjoyed the topic so far, like it up. We're 4 likes
Yeah,
away from
Walmart
20.
serves 30,000 people, 37 million people per day, and 230 million people per week, right? So how big, like, how many people have to get deported before it like moves the needle, right? Like, what's that one, you know? Yeah. Even if we're talking about 230,000, right? That's 0.01% of, or sorry, 0.1% of their weeklies, right? So yeah, my point was a good one even before knowing the numbers. That it's just like we have to get to some very seriously large deportation numbers before we like have to give that story much credence.
So we have one final topic before we do our switch over to the model portfolio update, and this is from Bloomberg, this story. And they were saying how for the first time on record, a majority of all trading in U.S. stocks is now consistently occurring outside the country's exchanges in dark pools. And I know we have a dark pool tracker in Prospero, so does this even shock you, the fact that the volume is that high?
No. I mean, we always do this when we talk about dark pools, but if you just to review, like what some people don't know about dark pools is they were originally designed to add transparency because there was a lot of off-book transactions where the institutions would just kind of transact with each other, and it wasn't out in the open, right? So like it does make sense if you want to sell your stock in one chunk, one batch at a certain price, right? And you're talking about millions of shares or whatever. Dark pools are just a really good way to do that, right? Because if you do that in the open market, you'll end up really paying a premium as you dump them and the stock goes up, right? So if you just want one fixed price, that's a good way to do it. So you see the logic in it, but the other side is that you're not giving other people access, right, to buy the stock on the way up in the market as it's supposed to work, right? So there's arguments on both sides, but one thing's for sure, it's not really fair, right? It is transparent, but it's not really the most fair thing.
We talked about it last time we talked about it, but they just picked the wrong name to call it dark pool. It should have been transparent pool. It would have had a lot less criticism and side eye looks from retail.
Yeah, it's poorly named if they want to make people feel comfortable.
But we are at that time to do the switch over. So we'll see you on the other side for the model portfolio update, and we'll see how we're changing it today based on our signals. So everybody stick with me. I'll update you on what the QQQ and SPY net option sentiment are looking like currently in the Prospero app. I hope you enjoyed our topic so far today. Let me make myself, there we go, big screen. Thought we had some good conversation there. If you want to see us check out any stocks specifically, comment them in our chat right now. We'll make sure to take a look. If you're new, because we've had almost 2,000 viewers in the stream so far, what we're doing now is George is going to use our signals, make live updates. It's usually a paid product that we release, but you'll get to see it on stream for free. So there's your value there. Okay, so I'm going to look at the QQQ right now in Prospero first. And the QQQ is still at 0 in Prospero. And it was at 29 on Friday and in the low 30s for most of last week. So definitely a recent turn downward there. Something to keep an eye on, I would say. And then let's look at the SPY as well. And in recent weeks, the SPY and the QQQ have kind of been flipping in our signals back and forth. For most of last year, the QQQ was at a higher level, and then there was a time period where the SPY was up above it for a month or so. But recently, they've been flipping back and forth. So it's kind of not making a decision, a little uncertain one way or the other. Looking at SPY right now, SPY is at 26 in net option sentiment, so holding up higher than the QQQ, but I wouldn't say at a bullish level in its own right. See what stocks are popping up on our short-term bull list, which is the first list of stocks that when you open the Prospero app that you see. Right now we have Oracle, Robinhood, GameStop, Alibaba, Broadcom, Nvidia, Uber, Pinduoduo, JD.com, and Microsoft. So of the 10 stocks, 3 of them, Baba, Pinduoduo, and JD.com, are in China. Something to note there, I would say. Looks like people are betting on a big move in China. And what do we have? We have Baba earnings coming up, Mario commented, later this week, I guess. So maybe people are expecting fireworks. I know the Chinese stocks trade at very low valuations, so they've been beat down for a long time. Let's see what stocks are on our short-term bear list. T. Rowe Price, Toll Brothers, Monster Beverage, HSBC, Skyline, Champion Corporation, Arthur J. Gallagher and Company, National Storage Affiliates, Rexford Industry, Realty, Skyworks, and Douglas Emmett. So those are the short-term bull and short-term bear lists for everybody who has the Prospero app. You probably can see that right now as you're watching the stream. But if you haven't downloaded it yet, you should be doing that. And there is a link in the YouTube description on this live stream right now that'll take you to the download, I believe. Let me double check on that, but pretty certain. So let's see. Yeah, so there's a link to our website. So if you click on that, it'll take you to the Prospero website, which there's a download link from there. So yeah, it should be good to go. Why is there 2 rectangles over my head on our YouTube live stream? When I'm looking at it, it's showing that for me. I don't know why that would be the case. We're just waiting a moment to see if George joins us back in here. Just me and you guys in the meantime. We are 3 likes away from hitting 20, so thank you all for pushing us closer to that goal. Only 60 viewers away from hitting 2,000 too, so it's been a very good stream so far. Happy to have you guys here with us today. Let me change the charger. I cannot hear you, George. Oh, I got you now. It's very low though. Mm. No, I can't really hear you. I can't make out what you're saying here. Let me try to change my headphones, see if it's. Take these out. All right.
How about now?
No, I still can't hear you. Can our chat hear George?
I'll just
What'd you say?
you can't hear me, right? What about now?
I can hear you, but it's like very, very, very low.
Okay. I mean, I can try one more thing. Hold on.
Sure thing. Sorry, everybody. Stick around with me. I'm sure the payoff after George gets the mic situated will be worth it. I took out the headphones, so hopefully you're not getting any echo or anything. I don't know how it affects my mic or whatnot, but Trey's got us. You could just barely hear George. Yeah, me too. It was very, very, very low. So we'll see if anything changes when he gets back in here. Let me look at some of the stocks that we usually talk about and see if there's anything that should be noteworthy to speak about. One of the stocks maybe I'll bring up. Oh, we got George back.
All right, is this better?
Let's see if it is better.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that is better.
Okay. We were about to give up, but we press on. All right. I got the letter. Let me share.
All right, so Q0 and SPY is at 28.
Sorry, one more time.
QQQ is 0 and SPY is 28.
Wow.
We are not seeing your screen either, by the way.
No, I'm just getting everything set up.
Okay.
No reason not to just get everything. I'm almost there. Thanks to everyone that stayed through the technical difficulties. All right, now I am going to share my screen. Okay.
Nothing to do but plan to trim a little tech long and broaden our exposure on the long side, as well as target the right tech short.
Yeah, but look at this. Like, large cap growth is doing well today. What's going on with our mid cap growth stocks? We still have that screener up.
I feel like mid cap growth is like a lot of the earnings that we have this week now, and a lot of the large cap is behind us.
Yeah. Should have gotten Hims last week. It's been there at the top.
They had a Super Bowl commercial. I saw they were getting sued. They were trying to stop it, the pharma industry.
Really?
Yeah, I think their number one product is like a knockoff uh, Ozempic or whatever. It's like the compound, so they're ruffling some feathers. Large cap growth is doing well today, but that doesn't change our plans. Could be the calm before the storm. We definitely regret not going harder into mid cap growth as it continues to look strong. Being the top category all the way back from 1 week to 6 months.
I feel like right when we load up more on it, it's going to start going down.
Energy might be too hard to ignore going a little more long today. Financials look like a bear target. Everything else, we will be opportunistic. That's a switch on financials, huh? They've been strong recently, I feel like, for us.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. I think I've been doing this more lately. Want to do the exits first. I still have two Palantir positions I opened up this morning, so I'm just taking it down from 4 to 2 basically. Now that I saw the lower. No, those are highlighted already. Might as well. I know I'm going a little too far. Well, maybe not. I don't know if both of them. I'll keep those two. Why not? MGNI up again today. No. But I'll watch it. Earnings is tomorrow. I'm not playing that earnings. Okay, I feel good about this, I think. Oh, no, we're going to do one more thing, actually. I just want to add an energy long and okay, and no shorts, and then we just want an energy long and a tech short. What is BR? That might be our winner. Not really what we're looking for. Looking it up in the app. Yeah, no, I don't like that enough. Form is a little small. FN Wax. Interesting. What's going on with Wax? Did it report today? No, but it looks good. What does WEX do?
Engages in the provision of payment processing and information management solutions.
Yeah, a lot of price target cuts post earnings. All right, WEX it is. And we want an energy long. Okay. Easy enough. Oxy. Well,
Joining Buffett, huh?
there we go. Yeah. All right, I'm feeling good about this. I can just take a look at these while I'm here. Okay, everything looking strong. How about the shorts?
Comment from Gilbert, late to the stream. Any discussion on old darling SMCI? I got an early morning with net option sentiment climbing, but might get out before earnings.
Yeah, I mean, it's a dangerous earnings play, I think. Where are we with INFY, right? Yeah, I mean, I just think you never know what they can announce at their earnings. Like, it might be more problems, it's just too risky, I think. But it could pay off, All right, I think I'm holding on to INFY. But I'm definitely going to get into WEX as well in this portfolio. Now, after we get off this. All right.
So that's going to do it for today, everybody. Thank you for stopping by. We'll be back Wednesday at 3 p.m., so tune in then. We'll be talking about the latest and greatest of the market. Have a great day, everyone.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.